Hey everyone, it's Pastor Tabitha again, and I am here to talk with you a little bit about Hebrews chapter 2, verses 14 through 18. And that verse is this: it says, "These children are people with physical bodies, so Jesus himself became like them and had the same experiences that they have. He did this so that by dying he could destroy the one who has the power of death, that is, the devil. Jesus became like men and died so that he could free them. They were like slaves. Uh, they were like slaves all their lives because of their fear of death. Clearly, it is not angels that Jesus helps, but the people who are from Abraham. For this reason, Jesus had to be made like his brothers in every way. He became like men so that he could be their merciful and faithful high priest in service to God. Then Jesus could bring forgiveness for their sins, and now he can help those who are tempted. He is able to help because he himself suffered and was tempted." What a beautiful picture that paints of Jesus and who Jesus is, right? So up until Jesus coming, there was this distancing between God and humans, with the few exceptions like Abraham. Abraham sat face to face with God. The prophets received direct messages from God. But for the most part, there was a disconnect between God and humanity. Humanity knew that God loved them, and we knew that God provides for us and takes care of us, leads us through our wilderness times, right? So humanity knows this. But until Jesus came, that was their only experience that they had with God, and God knew that the only way for us to fall back in love with them was to have a presence among us, to be physically with us. Um, and so what had to happen is that for us to fully understand and grasp the depth of God's love for us, God had to be willing to step out of heaven and into earth. Uh, and so he sent Jesus as flesh and blood to experience life as flesh and blood. It says that Jesus had to become like man in every way. That means that it wasn't just God in a body. It was that Jesus was a body. Jesus was a human. And so when we really slow down and when we really think about it, what we experience in our life might have looked different for Jesus, but Jesus became like us in every way. That meant that Jesus, he was born, he had to learn to eat food, he had to learn to walk, he had to learn to talk, um, he had to learn to crawl, he had to learn how to make food. He probably learned how to work in his dad's workshop, right? He was like us in every way. He had to go to school and learn. I'm sure that there were people that picked on him before he became, or before it came known that he was the Messiah. And we already know that he was mocked as the Messiah, so he knew what it was like to live life being made fun of, being a mockery for people. And then I also had this moment in this that I was thinking, like, Jesus also knew what it was like to be raised by somebody that wasn't his own father. Right? Joseph was a great father to Jesus, but in many ways, Joseph was Jesus' stepfather. And so he knows what it's like to be from a broken home, but a home that's not broken because it's whole. The fact that Jesus was still able to know and experience what we did because he was wholly human, it just it blows my mind away. Like, he had to become like us. He had to endure the things that we endure each day. And it might look different, yeah, because he's God. And so did he sin? No. But was he tempted to do things he shouldn't do? Absolutely. And so it confounds me when we don't realize the humanity of Jesus. Jesus knows what it's like to be like us. And the only way for him to know what it's like to be like us was to become like us, to experience us as humans. And so it says that he became human to help us to no longer live in fear of death, right? So it's not just a physical death, like we all die, okay? But Jesus has already gone and prepared a place for us in eternal glory. As the bride, or as the groom goes away to prepare for his bride, Jesus went away to prepare for us. And so Jesus is waiting for us to be reunited with him. But in the meantime, Jesus still knew what it was like to be us. And he knew that for us to fully be able to be with him, that we would have to overcome the fear of death. And he showed us that. He showed us the victory that he has over death. And it's not just a literal death. Like, yeah, we don't need to be afraid of death anymore because we get to be in eternity with him. But there's also a death in our spirit. And so he didn't just come to free us from the death of our literal physical bodies. He came to free us from the death to ourselves, the death that sin brings us. Now, I don't know about you, but the times where I have intentionally lived in sin, where I was looking out for myself, was the times where I was the most dead inside. In fact, one time I had a real come to Jesus moment, and the next day I came to work, and my boss looked at me and said, "What happened to you? Because you have more life in you than I've seen in the last 11 months." Christ knows our suffering, and he came to show us that we don't have to suffer. That we, because of him, don't have to live in that fear of what is the world going to think about me, but rather we get to live rejoicing in what Christ has done because he has experienced it. And so the challenge is this week, reflecting on what has God done for you? How has God become like you so that he can understand you and you can understand him? And in what ways can you be like Christ to let the world know just the depth of love that he has for them also? Have a great week, guys.